Good afternoon, this is Matthew Lindsay with Precision Home Group here in Anchorage. So we're talking real estate investments today and knowing your market. So this is really important. Now we stressed a lot about running through the financials, right? Talking about, hey, analyzing the deal, do the numbers make sense? But that is only part of looking at a real estate transaction, looking at an investment. There's lots of other things you need to look at, you need to analyze, and you do your due diligence on to come to the conclusion that this is a good deal. Now, a lot of times we'll start with the financials, and that's gonna be our buffer. That's gonna be what we look at first. And if the numbers don't make sense, we don't look further. We go on to the next one, right? But if the numbers do make sense, well, hey, that's gonna be something that we move forward on. It's gonna be something that we continue looking into, and we use that as a filter to find good deals. So what do you do after you find a good deal? After the numbers make sense and after everything else that's going on, what do? That's what we're gonna talk about today. So the next step that we're gonna do is we're gonna find out, hey, what is the market doing? You gotta know what the market's doing. If you don't know what the market is doing, then you have no idea. Is it a good deal? Yes, the numbers might make sense now, but if you're going down into a downturn market, are they still going to make sense, right? So you need to know what's going on in your local area, wherever this property is. So we're going to talk about that today. And this is going to be true not just for multifamily real estate, which we talk a lot about. I'm a big fan of the multifamily. You know, this is going to work for any real estate investments. If it's industrial, if it's vacant land, if it's office space, mixed use, no matter what type of investment this is, this information actually applies to that. So knowing your market. And before we get into knowing your market, I want to quickly just touch on some of the other areas that you're going to do your due diligence, your strategic analysis is what we like to call it. So first is that financial. We talked about that. We stressed that. We'll continue to stress that because that's going to be your filter, right? Then we're going to go into your market, which we're talking about today, knowing your market. Okay, next is the location and the site of the property. Where is it located inside of that market? What's the sub-market? What is the building itself? What are physical features of that building? Is there anything you need to know about the site where it sits? Is there any environmental concerns? Anything like that, right? You need to know where it sits, the location, and site-specific things. And then lastly, political and legal zoning. Does it make sure, is it grandfathered in an area, and in transfer of ownership, you're not going to be able to do or use it for the same use? You know, is there planning going around? Is there changes in the environment that you need to be made aware of? Is there, you know, different legal things that you have to, you have no idea what's going on, and you're going to just be taking that on if you purchase the property. So these are different things. The 4 different sections for due diligence is going to be that financial, the market, location and site, and then also the last one is going to be political and legal. So we're going to jump in today to knowing your market. We're going to start that by talking about market trends. Knowing where you are in the market trend is going to help you figure out how to plan, where to go from here. So what we need to do is we need to collect information for the market that you're going to go purchase in. If you live in that market, you probably have quite a bit of information and local knowledge. If you're not and you're purchasing elsewhere, I'm here in Anchorage. If I was to go purchase in Dallas, Texas, I have to go out and I have to go get that information. There's a lot of information out there readily available. I could talk to brokers. I could talk to users of that real estate. Maybe that's office space, maybe that's multifamily, maybe that's investors down there, owners and users of that space. I'm going to be able to get some really good information from there. There's also published reports with all of this information in that you can go get your hands on and find out, hey, what is the local economy doing? So what we have here is actually the market. This is the trend. Now, everywhere you go, it's going to be the same. The only thing that's going to change really is where you are in this market. So we're going to briefly go over this, and then we're going to talk about how you can actually pay more for real estate than what it's listed, how to do that, when to do that, and why you would do that. So here is the real estate trends. We're gonna start off right here in recovery, right? So recovery, we have negative rent growth, we have no new construction, and we have declining vacancy. That's recovery coming out of that recession. It's just the tail end of the recession here. So you have recession and then you have recovery coming out of that, right? Well, you're gonna start climbing out of your recoveries and getting into that expansion. Once you're in that expansion, you're gonna have rents rise. So rents are rising, that's good, right? We all like rents rising. If you're a landlord, it's good for you. We have new construction starting. So we're coming out of the recession, we recovered, now we're expanding. So a lot of builders are out there, developers are out there. Hey, if rents are rising, I wanna get in on that and I wanna build some more units, whether that's office, multifamily, whatever it is, right? We also see a decline in vacancy. What that tells me is that more units are being absorbed, more units are being rented out, and we see that with the decline in vacancy. So expansion, we're starting to get up towards the top of that bubble, right? Towards that top of that loop. Once we hit that equilibrium point right up here, that's when the downturn starts to take place, right? And that's what we call hyper supply. So in expansion, we had all this new construction happening. We had people renting out all the units. A lot of vacancies have been absorbed. Everything is great. Rents are high, it's top of the bubble. Now we're in a hyper supply. Some of those new construction developments are starting to deliver their units to the marketplace. Now the marketplace is starting, not necessarily fully, but it's starting to get oversupplied, hyper supply. We have lots of new units hitting the market because we saw that they were being absorbed here, but now they're not. So we're gonna still see a little bit of rent growth there, and it's gonna start to taper off actually. And then new construction is still taking place because all these projects are, most of them are still in the building phase, that new development phase. So once that new construction starts delivering their new product, the new units, the new office space, and starts flooding the market, that's when we start to see this recession take place. We have all this new units available, which means we have all these vacancies available. We see rents starting to go back down. We start seeing more competition for the units themselves, and we start seeing more of the new construction that was starting to get developed and built here and here starts to take place and be delivered to the marketplace. So that is in and of itself the real estate trends. Know your market. Identify your market for your area. Are you in recovery? Are you in expansion? Are you in hypersupply, or are you in a recession? So that's knowing what your market is. There's lots of resources to find out what market you're in. Now, I mentioned before, how can you actually pay more for real estate than what it's listed at? And this might sound counterintuitive, but if you're competing for a property and you're looking at a property and other people are offering list price, how can you look at that piece of property and know that, hey, I can actually pay more than these other people because I know what the market's doing, where it's going, and what is happening? And taking the guesswork out of it. How can I do that? Well, you have to know your market, right? That's what we're talking about here. Know your market. What's been happening in the last 5 years in your market? What's the cycle? What part of the cycle are you in? Are you in the top? Are you in the bottom? Are you expanding? What's going on? And then we also need to look at, hey, what does the future look like? So, for example, if I'm going to take a site here in downtown Anchorage, I'm going to be looking at that. I'm going to be looking at, hey, what's happened over the last 5 years? Have we been in a decline? Have we been increasing? Have we been staying stagnant? I also got to look to the future. Hey, are there new developments taking place? Are they trying to clean up downtown? Is there new office space going downtown? Is there new multifamily going downtown? What is happening in the downtown? If I purchase some property now in a particular area of downtown, is it going to be surrounded by new office spaces and new multifamily, and is that area going to be absorbed? Do we have users for what is being offered? Or are we putting out product that can't be absorbed because we don't have the users? These are questions you need to ask. You need to find out what new developments are happening in your town. You need to know what new laws, we talked about political and legal before, You need to figure out, hey, are there new laws that are going to impede growth in your area? Or are there new laws going to take place that actually spark growth in your area? These are all things that you need to figure out. And by knowing your market, very well, you can actually play this game a lot better. You can actually have an edge up on other investors just because you know what's going on, what's going to be happening, and what developments are taking place so that you can actually get in front of that market change, that market switch. So this has been a video on knowing your market and how to determine what type of market you're in. I know you have some other questions about this, so feel free to reach out. Let me know what questions you have. Drop those below in the comments, and I will get back to you. Thanks for joining us today. This has been Matthew Lindsay with Precision Home Group on Know Your Market. Hit that like, hit that share, and if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button.